Quote, the U.S. should beware of the Beijing-Moscow axis. Let's bring in Jamil Jaffer, founder and executive director of the National Security Institute and former associate White House counsel to President George W. Bush. Thank you so much for being here. First off, do you believe the U.S. made the right move with these strikes in Syria?
Well, absolutely, Alicia. I think it was the right thing to do to respond to the attacks against Americans and the killing of a U.S. contractor. Frankly, I think we should have been doing a lot more, a lot earlier. President Trump had it right when he pushed back aggressively against the killing of an American by killing an Iranian senior official, the Qasem Soleimani, the head of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard's Quds Force. We need to be doing more to deter Iran, not less. Frankly, Alicia, Dan is just wrong on this front.
But let's talk about these concerns revolving around this increasingly cozy relationship between China and Russia, especially when you consider the meeting between the presidents of both countries this week. Here is former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo on Sunday Morning Futures. And then right after that, we're going to hear what the president had to say on this on Friday.
For America, it matters because you now have these two powers combined working against the interests of the United States of America. The fact that the Biden administration has let this happen is absolutely tragic and unnecessary. Think that the 1,000 Russian nuclear warheads are now part of the Chinese Communist Party's nuclear stockpile is one way to think about this. They'll now be working together against our and the West's nuclear programs.
I don't take China lightly. I don't take Russia lightly. But I think we vastly exaggerate. I've been hearing now for the past 3 months about China is going to provide significant weapons to Russia, and they've all been talking about that. They haven't yet. Doesn't mean they won't, but they haven't yet.
Jamil, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, in terms of U.S. interests here, is this the larger focus that the president should have?
Well, there's no doubt that Secretary Pompeo is right, that this growing Beijing-Moscow axis is something to be very deeply concerned about and something we absolutely need to push back against. I think President Biden is wrong to minimize the nature of that threat. We can and should push back on China and on Russia and its behavior in Ukraine. All that being said, look, I believe the United States can walk and chew gum at the same time. President Trump proved that. He pushed back against China, and he went after Qasem Soleimani in Iran. We can do both those things effectively. We cannot allow Americans to be killed around the globe and not respond. That is unacceptable. I'm with Congressman Mike Waltz, Congressman Mike Gallagher, right? Senator Tom Cotton, Senator Lindsey Graham. These are all folks who have said this was the right thing to do. And actually, we need to be doing more. And that's exactly right. 78 attacks on American facilities in Syria by Iranian-backed groups just since President Biden took office. That's a catastrophe. It's one that we need to respond to as a nation. And we can do that while pushing back on China at the same time.
Well, and the way the president made his statement there wasn't exactly a show of force on the world stage. And there's also news that the foreign ministers from China and Honduras signed a joint communique to establish diplomatic ties. The Honduran foreign ministry issuing a statement that it has severed ties with Taiwan and recognizes only one China in the world. What's the impact on, one, China's influence in Latin America now, and how should the U.S. read this?
Well, this is obviously deeply concerning. We see China making inroads around the globe, but now they're making significant inroads, things that we've already seen behind closed doors, but now we're seeing publicly happen in our own backyard in Latin America. It's completely unacceptable. We need to take a strong posture and be a strong foe to our enemies and a strong friend to our allies. This administration has not effectively done that. We need to make clear to the world the U.S. is here. We're on the world stage. We're ready to be an ally to our allies and an enemy to our adversaries and push back hard. That's the right role. And Americans stay safer when that happens because it prevents our enemies from pushing back against us, coming after us, and ultimately getting us into a larger war. America strong in the world is the best way for us to avoid a larger conflict.
Jamil Jaffer, thank you so much for your time today. Have a good one.
Thanks, Lisa.
Eric.